The BBC is purposely fueling the narrative that the NHS should be privatised. Here's how. News programmes, the BBC being one of them, often use think tanks on much of their politics and news coverage to try and provide some sort of independent analysis. Two of the most prominent of these are the Adam Smith Institute and the Institute of Economic Affairs. They feature heavily in online BBC articles, on the news directly and in live debates, constantly lobbying for right-wing issues such as privatising the NHS. Strict editorial guidelines set out by the BBC state that contributors must let any vested interest and funding information available. The problem isn't necessarily the think tanks themselves. They can provide ideas, analysis and discussion. The problem is giving these think tanks a platform when they haven't given us any information on where their money's coming from. Journalist George Monbiot and the organisation Who Funds You have done some great work in uncovering the vast extent of some of the dark money involved in these think tanks. They discovered that Big Tobacco has funded them for years. This is whilst they've lobbied against further tobacco regulations such as plain cigarette packaging. Think tanks should disclose their funders and donors for the public good, as do political parties. These two think tanks, however, get away with providing absolutely zero information on who funds them. Here we have Kate Andrews from the IEA telling us why privatisation for the NHS is such a good idea. For all we know, this could be Virgin Care speaking.
The philosophy of the National Health Service is that good healthcare should be accessible to all, regardless of wealth. But it's not available this month. 50,000 appointments have been cut from the schedule, or more accurately put, 50,000 patients, many of whom are waiting in pain, are being forced to wait even longer for their hip replacements and their knee surgeries. All because the NHS is ill-equipped to deal with the winter flu. If this isn't the definition of system failure, what is?
No, it's the definition of chronic underfunding. System failure is what we see in America, where insurers don't want to insure people who are sick or old. The system has been the best and the most efficient for years. Why is that any different now? Oh yeah, because we've had the longest, most sustained reduction in NHS spending since records began. Compared to other countries, we still spend one of the least as a percentage of GDP, yet still come top of most international comparisons.
We all know deep down that hard truths are being buried to protect the sacred cow. But if doctors are now speaking out about the third world conditions in the NHS, isn't it time that politicians and commentators followed suit?
Stop twisting their words. Yes, they've commented on some of the atrocious conditions seen in the NHS this winter. Yet almost all of them have said that this is entirely preventable and nothing to do with it not being an insurance system.
The NHS ranks in the bottom third of international comparisons for health system performance. It grades far below the social health insurance systems of Europe and other systems further abroad, which outperform the UK on crucial aspects of healthcare, like A&E waiting times and cancer treatments.
Yeah, we're not saying that the service itself has been absolutely perfect. Especially after 7 years of austerity, it's bound to fall short in some areas like waiting times. If you're forking out health insurance for Bupa and paying hundreds of pounds a month, you're obviously going to expect very good quality care. The point is that it's free at the point of use, and it's achieving this at one of the lowest costs per GDP.
No one outside the UK envies the NHS.
The NHS has been the envy of millions of people across the world. Progressives in the US at the moment are striving to get a single payer system just like ours.
Many people, including the Health Secretary this week, cite the Commonwealth Fund study, a rare report that ranks the NHS best overall, to suggest that they do.
Yeah, the Commonwealth study, widely accepted as one of the most thorough and vigorous international comparisons of healthcare systems. And it still puts UK at the top despite all the funding squeeze. And it doesn't just look at health outcomes, it looks at all of the processes involved in care, from admin efficiency to equality of care to accessibility of care.
You can keep the 3 letters if you wish, but it's time for a radical change to create a better patient-centric system.
So what, the NHS currently isn't a patient-centric system? You shouldn't be anywhere near to being on television until you state who funds you, and it's an absolute disgrace that you are.